Hi, you fabulous Foxes students. How are you all? It's Mrs Bryant and I'm back for your next instalment of Harry Potter. Right, let's crack on. Harry had never been to London before, although Hagrid seemed to know where he was going. He was obviously not used to getting there in the ordinary way. He got stuck in the ticket barrier on the Underground and complained loudly the seats were too small and the trains too slow. "I don't know how these muggles manage without magic," he said, as they climbed up a broken down escalator which led up to a bustling road lined with shops. Hagrid was so huge that he parted the crowd easily. All Harry had to do was keep close behind him. They passed bookshops and music stores, hamburger bars and cinemas, but nowhere that looked as if it could sell you a magic wand. This was just an ordinary street, full of ordinary people. Could there really be piles of wizard gold buried miles beneath them? Were there really shops that sold spellbooks and broomsticks? Might this not all be some huge joke the Dursleys had cooked up? If Harry hadn't known the Dursleys had absolutely no sense of humour, he might have thought so. Yet, somehow, even though everything Hagrid had told him so far was unbelievable, Harry couldn't help trusting him. "This is it," said Hagrid, coming to a halt. "The Leaky Cauldron. It's a famous place." It was a tiny, grubby-looking pub. If Hagrid hadn't pointed it out, Harry wouldn't have noticed it was there. The people hurrying by didn't even glance at it. Their eyes slid from the big bookshop on one side of the street to the record shop on the other, as if they couldn't see the Leaky Cauldron. In fact, Harry had the most peculiar feeling that only he and Hagrid could see it. But before he could mention this to Hagrid had steered him inside. For a famous place, it was very dark and shabby. A few old women were sitting in the corner, drinking tiny glasses of sherry. One of them was smoking a long pipe. A little man in a top hat was talking to the old barman, who was quite bold and looked a little like a gummy walnut. The low buzz and chatter stopped when the two of them walked in. Everyone seemed to know Hagrid. They waved and smiled. The barman reached for a glass, saying, "Usual, Hagrid?" "Can't, Tom, I'm on Hogwarts business," said Hagrid, clapping a great hand on Harry's shoulder and making Harry's knees buckle. "Good Lord," said the barman, peering at Harry. Can this be?" The Leaky Cauldron had suddenly gone completely still and silent. "Bless my soul," whispered the old man. "Harry Potter! What an honour!" He hurried out from behind the bar, rushed towards Harry and seized his hand, tears in his eyes. "Welcome back, Mr. Potter! Welcome back!" Harry didn't know what to say. Everyone was looking at him. The old woman with the pipe was puffing on it without realising it had gone out. Hagrid was beaming. Then there was a great scraping of chairs, and the next moment Harry found himself shaking hands with everyone in the Leaky Cauldron. "Doris Crockford, Mr. Potter! I can't believe I'm meeting you at last!" "So proud, Mr. Potter, I'm just so proud." "Always wanted to shake your hand, I'm all aflutter." "Delighted, Mr. Potter, just can't tell you. Diggle's the name, Dedalus Diggle." "I've seen you before," said Harry, as Dedalus Diggle's top hat fell off in his excitement. "You bowed to me once in a shop." "He remembers!" cried Dedalus Diggle, looking around at everyone. "Did you hear that? He remembers me!" Harry shook hands again and again. Doris Crockford kept coming back for more. A pale man made his way forward very nervously. One of his eyes were twitching. "Professor Quirrell," said Hagrid. "Harry, Professor Quirrell be one of your teachers at Hogwarts." Potter?" stammered Professor Quirrell, grasping Harry's hand. "Can't tell you how pleased I am to meet you." "What sort of magic do you teach, Professor Quirrell?" "Defence against the dark arts," muttered Professor Quirrell, as though he'd rather not think about it. Not that you need it, Potter?" he laughed nervously. "You'll be getting all your equipment, I suppose." I've got to pick up a new book myself on vampires." He looked terrified at the very thought, but the others wouldn't let Professor Quirrell keep Harry to himself for too long. It took almost 10 minutes to get away from them all, but at last Hagrid managed to make himself heard over the babble. "Must get on, lots to buy. Come on, Harry." Doris Crockford shook Harry's hand one last time, and Hagrid led them through the bar and out into a small walled courtyard. There was only a dustbin and a few weeds, nothing else to see, but Hagrid grinned at Harry. "Told you, didn't I? Told you were famous. Even Professor Quirrell was trembling to meet you." "Mind you, he's usually trembling." "Is he always that nervous?" "Oh yeah, poor bloke. Brilliant mind he has. Fine while he was studying out of those books, but then he took a year off to get some first-hand experience. They say he met vampires in the Black Forest, and there was a nasty bit of trouble with a hag. Never been the same since. Scared of students. Scared of his own subject. Now, where's my umbrella? Vampires? Hags? Harry's head was swimming. Hagrid, meanwhile, was counting bricks in the wall above the dustbin. 3 up, 2 across, he muttered. "Right, stand back, Harry." He tapped the wall 3 times, the point of his umbrella. The brick he had touched quivered. It wriggled in the middle, and a small hole appeared. It grew wider and wider, and a second later they were facing an archway large enough even for Hagrid. An archway on a cobbled street which twisted and turned out of sight. "Welcome," said Hagrid, "to Diagon Alley." He grinned at Harry's amazement. They stepped through the archway. Harry looked quickly over his shoulder and saw the archway shrink instantly back into a solid wall. The sun shone brightly on a stack of cauldrons outside the nearest shop. Cauldrons of all sizes, copper, brass, pewter, silver, self-stirring, collapsible, said a sign hanging over them. "Yeah, you'll be needing one of them," said Hagrid. "But we gotta get your money first." Harry wished he had about 8 more eyes. He turned his head in every direction as they walked up the street, trying to look at everything all at once. The shops, the things outside them, the people doing their shopping. A plump woman outside the apothecary's was shaking her head as they passed, saying, "Dragon liver, 16 sickles an ounce, they're mad." A low, soft hooting came from a dark shop with a sign saying, "Elop's Owl Emporium, Tawny, Screech, Barn, Brown and Snowy." Several boys of about Harry's age had their nose pressed against the window with broomsticks in it. "Look," Harry heard one of them say, "the new Nimbus 2000, fastest ever." There were shops selling robes, shops selling telescopes, strange silver instruments Harry hadn't seen before, windows stacked with barrels of bat spleens and eels' eyes, tottering piles of spellbooks, quills and rolls of parchment, potion bottles, globes of the moon. "Gringotts," said Hagrid. they had reached a snowy white building which towered over the little shops, standing beside its burnished bronze doors, wearing a uniform of scarlet and gold, was... "Yeah, that's a goblin," said Hagrid quietly, as they walked up to the white stone steps towards him. The goblin was about a head shorter than Harry. He had a swarthy, clever face, a pointed beard, and Harry noticed very long fingers and feet. He bowed as they walked inside. Now they were facing a second pair of doors, silver this time, with words engraved upon them. "Enter, stranger, but take heed of what awaits, the sin of greed. For those who take but do not earn must pay most dearly in their turn. So, if you seek beneath our floors a treasure that was never yours, thief, you have been warned. Beware of finding more than treasure there." "Like I said, you'd be mad to try and rob it," said Hagrid. A pair of goblins bowed, and they walked through the silver doors, and they were in a vast marble hall. About 100 more goblins were sitting on high stools behind a long counter, scribbling in large ledgers, weighing coins on brass scales, examining precious stones through eyeglasses. There were too many doors to count leading off the hall, and yet more goblins were showing people in and out of these. Hagrid and Harry made for the counter. "Morning," said Hagrid to a free goblin. We've come to take some money out of Mr. Harry Potter's safe." "You have his key, sir?" "Got it here, somewhere," said Hagrid, and he started emptying his pockets onto the counter, scattering a handful of mouldy dog biscuits over the goblin's book of numbers. The goblin wrinkled his nose. Harry watched the goblin on the right, weighing up piles of rubies as big as glowing coals. "Got it," said Hagrid at last, holding up a tiny golden key. The goblin looked at it closely. "That seems to be an order." "And I've got a letter here from Professor Dumbledore," said Hagrid importantly, throwing out his chest. "It's about the you-know-what in Vault 713. The goblin read the letter carefully. "Very well," he said, handing it back to Hagrid. "I will have someone take you down to the vaults." Griphook! Griphook was yet another goblin. Once Hagrid had crammed all of the dog biscuits back inside his pockets, he and Harry followed Griphook towards one of the doors leading off the hall. "What's the you-know-what in Vault 713? asked Harry. "Can't tell you that," said Hagrid mysteriously. "Very secret. Hogwarts business. Dumbledore's trusted me. More than my job's worth to tell you that." Griphook held the door open for them. Harry, who had expected more marble, was surprised. They were in a narrow stone passageway lit with flaming torches. It sloped steeply downwards, and there were little railway tracks on the floor. Griphook whistled, and a small cart came hurtling up the tracks towards them. They climbed in, Hagrid with some difficulty, and then they were off. At first they just hurtled through a maze of twisting passages. Harry tried to remember left, right, left, middle fork, right, left, but it was impossible. The rattling cart seemed to know its own way because Griphook wasn't steering. Harry's eyes stung as the cold air rushed past them, but he kept them wide open. Once he thought he saw a burst of fire at the end of a passage and twisted round to see. It could have been a dragon, but too late. They'd plunged down deeper, passing an underground lake, where huge stalactites and stalagmites grew from the ceiling and from the floor. "I never know," Harry called to Hagrid. The noise of the cart. What's the difference between a stalagmite and a stalactite?" "Well, stalagmite's got an M in it," said Hagrid. "And And don't ask me questions just now. I think I'm going to be sick. He did look very green, and when the cart stopped at last beside a small door in the passageway, Hagrid got out and had to lean against the top of a wall. His knees were trembling. Griphook unlocked the door. A little and then a lot of green smoke came billowing out, and as it cleared, Harry gasped. Inside were mounds of gold coins, columns of silver, heaps of little bronze nuts. All yours, smiled Hagrid. All Harry's? It was incredible. The Dursleys couldn't have known about this, or they'd have had it from him faster than blinking. How often had they complained how much Harry cost them to keep? And all the time there had been a small fortune belonging to him under London. Hagrid helped Harry pile some of it into a bag. The gold ones are galleons, he explained. 17 silver sickles to a galleon and 21 nuts to a sickle. It's easy enough. Right. That should be enough for a couple of terms. We'll keep the rest safe for you. He turned to Griphook. Vault 713 now. Please can we go more slowly? One speed only, said Griphook. They were going even deeper now and gathering speed. The air became colder and colder as they hurtled round tight corners. They went rattling over an underground ravine, and Harry leant over the side to try and see what was down at the dark bottom, but Hagrid groaned and pulled him back by the scruff of his neck. Vault 713 had no keyhole. Stand back, said Griphook importantly. He stroked the door gently with one of his long fingers, and it simply melted away. If anyone but a Gringotts goblin tried that, they'd be sucked through the door and trapped in there, said Griphook. How often do you check to see if anyone's inside? Harry asked. About once every 10 years, said Griphook with a rather nasty grin. Something really extraordinary had to be inside this top security vault. Harry was sure, and he leant forward, eagerly expecting to see fabulous jewels at the very least. But at first he thought it was empty. Then he noticed a grubby little package wrapped in brown paper lying on the floor. Hagrid picked it up and tucked it deep inside his coat. Harry longed to know what was in it, but knew better than to ask. Come on, back in this infernal cart, and don't talk to me on the way back. It's best if I keep my mouth shut, said Hagrid. And that is where I will be stopping for today. What marvellous new things Harry has experienced. I really do quite fancy a trip to Diagon Alley myself. Perhaps when it's safe. And they can reduce the restrictions. But for now, I shall have to imagine. Maybe you can help me with that. Picture this. You are a shop owner in Diagon Alley, where your shop is. What's it you sell again? Yes, I remember. It really is a nuisance that you're unable to open because of this virus. But I understand it's to keep us all safe. But after all, you are magical. So, here's your creative challenge. Can you make an advert advertising your shop in Diagon Alley? And remember, let us know what you're selling. You'll need to offer a way of getting your product to me safely and to anyone else that wants to order. Perhaps you could do this by owl, apparition, flu powder, but I'm going to leave the logistics down to you. You might like to make a film for your advert, or you could do a radio podcast, a recording, or make a poster or a talking letter. I absolutely cannot wait to see what you come up with, and I'm hoping you're going to show me these when we return to school. But for now, I want to say take care, stay safe, don't let those muggles get you down. Evanesco!